Welcome back. Well, 16 days of activism against violence against women and children has come to an end. Sadly, though, GBV has not. Harassment in the workplace also remains an ugly reality. It can happen in person or even virtually. Employees are being advised to carefully follow protocols to ensure perpetrators are held to account. So let's get more insight from a labor law expert, Phetheni Nkuna from Hofmeyer. Thank you so much, Phetheni, for your time this morning. Let's talk a little bit about how COVID-19, though has, made a lot of us stop working from home, but it would appear as though the violence that's been perpetuated against genders or GBV for that matter still refuses to go away. And sexual harassment in the workplace, whether virtually or physically, still remains a problem. Why is that?
So it's quite a difficult question to answer. We live in a very complex society, so to say, where unfortunately, despite campaigns, despite awareness, despite legislative reform, this heinous conduct perpetuates. Within the context of COVID-19, we speak of cyber or virtual sexual harassment, which is really not new. It's just become more prevalent as more employees adopt a remote working mode, so to say. We speak about social media. I'm sure a lot of people know about cyberbullying. Unfortunately, there are instances where that has translated into sexual cyberbullying or sexual or cyber sexual harassment, so to say. You have emails. Emails are quite a predominant form of communication where there are acts of sexual harassment that are perpetuated via email communication, and a whole lot of other virtual platforms which perpetrators use to harass other employees. So unfortunately, yes, there's been a lot of reform, there's been a lot of effort, both from corporate and from government, but it still continues.
Well, I want us to just labor on the point around cyber virtual harassment or sexual harassment, because in often cases when we even define sexual harassment or what we have been provided as a definition in its manifestation for sexual harassment is if maybe somebody, a colleague, whether your boss or somebody or the other, touches you inappropriately or says something to you inappropriately and the like. Now, with the cyber virtual sexual harassment, does it not provide a gray area where somebody could say, but hold on, you are overestimating or you're exaggerating, or that's not what was my intention, and providing a little bit of a gray area for which perpetrators can then use to really literally get away with it?
So not necessarily. Remember, the definition of sexual harassment is not limited to physical conduct or the touching or the hugging. It can be verbal. It can be as somebody whistling, somebody looking at you inappropriately. So that has always been codified, so to say. So it's not a new area. It's just been developed to cater for the evolving world of work that we find ourselves in. So it's always been there. We've had email communication. I mean, I've personally in my practice dealt with an employee who says he even sent me this kind of content on my email. He even sent me this on WhatsApp. Or I must say that it can also be female to male. So it's not limited to males harassing females. It can be both ways. So it's always been there. It's not necessarily a gray area. It's always been defined.
What are we going to do about providing more protection to those that speak out? Because sometimes the victim risks being ostracized and segregated within the corporate structure because either the sexual harassment happens between themselves as well as somebody that is senior, or themselves and somebody that is deemed by the organization as being a key individual in the organization. Then you find that the victim is now put on the sideline to the benefit of the company. What are we doing to educate people about those kinds of realities and perhaps even shift the needle where that's concerned?
It's quite unfortunate that we still come across those kind of incidents where somebody is protected or somebody is not held to account. But I must commend our courts, I must commend our legislature, because there have been reforms that have been designed to protect employees or victims, because sexual harassment can also happen to potential job applicants. It can happen to service provider. For example, you're contracted to go and provide a service at your employer's client, and that happens at those premises or during the course of you doing that. So it's quite all-encompassing. That being said, our laws, the Employment Equity Act, prohibits victimization of anybody who reports allegations of sexual harassment. That being said, it is important for employees or any person who's a victim of sexual harassment to report the act immediately. The Employment Equity Act requires the victim of the act to bring this to the attention of the employer, to do so immediately, and also holds the employer responsible for taking relevant steps to eliminate that conduct. So once it is reported, it is incumbent and critical for employers to take action, failing which they may actually be held liable. So the Employment Equity Act codifies the principle, the common law principle of vicarious liability, where it fails to take action where such an incident is reported, it can be held liable. This has been confirmed over and over again by our courts. As recent as September 2021, we had a judgment coming out of the Labour Court confirming that it is critical, it is the responsibility of the victim to bring it to the attention of the employer immediately. You can't take 2 years, you can't take 3 years. That unfortunately will cause prejudice if you take so long to report it. But as soon as you report it, the employer must take action, which would usually be an investigation into the allegations. Where they are found to have merit, then take action such as disciplinary action against the perpetrator.
Phetheni, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you very much for your time and shedding some light in terms of how sexual harassment it's not new, but it looks as though now it's also evolving more and more into the virtual space as more of us are working from home.